Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Daily English Podcast. I'm Daniel, and as always, my wonderful co-host joining me is Anna. Anna, how are you today?
Hello, Daniel. I feel energized and ready for today's topic. How about you?
I'm doing well, too. You know, yesterday I suddenly thought, why is it that some people completely change their lives while others stay stuck in the same place?
Oh, I've thought about that too. You see someone go from struggling to successful, and you wonder, what's their secret? Are they just lucky? Or are they doing something differently?
Exactly. And then I started thinking about when I was learning English. At first, it felt impossible. Too many words, too many rules. But then, little by little, everything started making sense.
That's right. When I first started learning, I always thought, if I knew more words, I would be fluent. But it's not just about vocabulary. It's about building habits, changing your mindset. And that's when I realized life is the same way. Big changes don't happen overnight. They are the small changes we make every day.
And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today: how to change your life.
That's right. And we'll take a closer look at them later in the vocabulary section and analyze those words and phrases, explain their meanings, and show how to use them in real-life conversations.
So stay with us. By the end of this episode, you won't just have practical steps to change your life, but you'll also have new English vocabulary to help you express your ideas better.
You know, Daniel, thinking about what we just talked about, how life changes little by little, it makes me wonder why so many people struggle to make those changes in the first place.
That's a great question. Change sounds exciting, right? But here's the truth. Most people never actually make those changes. Why? Because change is hard.
Let's talk about the common reasons why people feel stuck.
Yeah, first is the fear of failure. Many people ask, what if I try and fail? But what if you try and succeed? Everyone who succeeds has failed along the way. The difference is, they keep going. The second reason is lack of direction. Some people know they want a better life but don't know where to start. They think they need a perfect plan before taking action. And then there are negative thoughts like, I will never be good at this. I will never be good at that. Or, I'm not a good language learner. These thoughts are always barriers to getting started. Finally, one of the biggest traps: waiting for motivation. People say, I'll start when I feel ready. But here's a secret. Motivation comes after action, not before. That reminds me of when I faced a personal challenge. I kept waiting for the perfect moment to start. But that moment never came, until I took the first step. That's a great point. And I remember feeling the same way when learning English. At first I thought, I'm not good at this. But then I realized, the only way to improve is to actually start practicing.
Exactly. And that leads us to the key lesson. Understanding what is holding you back from changing your life. When you recognize these barriers, you can start breaking them down.
So, Anna, now that we understand what is holding people back, the next big question is, how do we actually start making those changes?
That's where small daily improvements come in. People often think they need a big change immediately, but in reality, it's just small, gradual changes. Have you heard of the 1% rule?
Yes, if you improve just 1% every day, you'll be 37 times better in a year. That's because small efforts compound over time, like interest in a bank account.
Exactly. And that relates to the power of habits. Small changes may not seem big at first, but they redefine who you are over time.
Right, like reading just 10 minutes a day, practicing English for 5 minutes a day, or even replacing negative thoughts with positive affirmations.
And I love real-life examples. I know someone who became fluent in English just by listening to podcasts every day. They didn't start with an intense study plan, just small, consistent steps.
That's so inspiring. The takeaway here is that small, consistent actions lead to big results over time. So if you're listening and wondering where to start, just pick one small habit today.
Exactly. And you know, Daniel, while taking action is important, there is something even more fundamental: our mindset. There is something called growth mindset and fixed mindset. If you have a growth mindset, you believe I can improve. But if you have a fixed mindset, you think, I will never be good at this.
That's a huge difference.
And another thing, our brain is programmed to focus on what we train it to notice. Have you heard of the reticular activating system?
Yes, that's why when you learn a new word, you suddenly hear it everywhere. Your brain filters information based on what you focus on.
So if you keep telling yourself, I can't do this, your brain will find evidence to prove it. But if you say, I am improving every day, your brain will focus on that progress instead.
When I was learning English, I hesitated to start speaking because I felt like I wasn't ready. I kept thinking, what if I make mistakes? But the longer I waited, the harder it became.
That's so relatable. And that's the key. There's a concept I love. Done is better than perfect. Too many people delay action because they want everything to be perfect. But in reality, imperfect action is always better than no action.
Right. If you wait for perfection, you will never get started. Whether it's learning English, starting a new habit, or making a big life change, just start. Small steps will lead to big improvements over time. So here's a quick challenge for you, our listeners. Think of one thing you've been postponing. It could be practicing English, starting a workout routine, or even reaching out to someone for help. And then, just take one small step today. Not tomorrow, not next week. Today.
That's right. Small, consistent actions over time create big change. So don't wait for the perfect moment. Make today the day you start.
So, Anna, if we had to leave our listeners with one key message from today's episode, what would it be?
I would say this: you have more control over your life than you think. Small changes, the right mindset, and a good environment can completely transform your life.
Absolutely. And remember, progress doesn't happen overnight, but every step you take brings you closer to where you want to be. Also, let us know in the comments. What is one small change you are making today? We would love to hear from you.
And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a review. Let's keep growing together.